Hello there, it is I, the professional YouTuber who accidentally recorded his screen in portrait mode. So yeah, the new proxy and just came out in Starseed Asnia Trigger. We are of course as always on the Korean server. We're gonna be checking her out, right? So first of all, you may have already seen the previous video where I showcased her skills from the patch notes in Korea. But today we're mostly gonna be looking at how the skills look first of all, right? What they do. I'm not gonna explain too much what they do, just a brief overview since I've already covered them in the previous one. And we're gonna be testing her out in a lot of fights, right? And at the very end, I'll most likely do sort of like a small summary of my thoughts about her skills, right? After using it for this video and then a little bit afterwards, right? So this is what she looks like, right? I leveled her up to UR rank for this test. We're testing her at level sync 200, right? So currently my whole account is at around 200, apart from Rachel and Thief being at 220. So yeah, these are the stats: 30k attack, 6k defense, 235k HP. For badges, we'll have pretty much attack and ultimate damage. And yeah, and also for the gear, I am currently running the basically just borrowed a set from my Frederica, right? So it is mainly a 3 set of crit rate, right? So I'm gonna hope for some crits with the set, although when you see in the battle, you'll see that those crits didn't happen too much. But yeah, and now we can see the skills, right? So currently for this testing phase, I've used level 3 skills, basically ultimate, passive. Both active skills are at level 3, and her exclusive skill is unfortunately only at level 1, since I haven't leveled up her plugin too much, but she does have the plugin equipped, right? So first of all, the awaken skill, right? So I'm gonna let it play, and essentially what it does is it will have a little bit of a short range attack on a unit, right? On any unit that she's closest with. It will hit for 1200% multiplier damage, and it ignores 100% of the enemy defense. It also has a special effect called Feint, which I'm not sure what it is. I'm guessing it's a stun based on the debuff, right? And on top of that, if the target has a shield, the shield is instantly removed. And when the target's health is below 50% HP, she will instantly gain 300 energy. Now I'm gonna let the Blossom skill play out. This one does have a much higher range, right? So just from the range, as you can see, the Awaken skill had a 2-meter radius, whereas her her Blossom skill has a 3.5-meter radius. So it's like almost double the size of the Awaken skill, right? And the skill itself, essentially, it does 1000% damage multiplier, it knocks up enemies for 1.5 seconds, and it also grants a special debuff called the Verse Flow for 5 seconds, right? So this one is actually very interesting, and it does have very useful scenarios for it, especially countering several units. So for 5 seconds, whenever the enemy has this beat buff, anytime they receive healing, instead of receiving healing, they would get it as damage. So let's say a unit has the debuffs, it receives 10,000 healing. Not only will it not receive the 10,000 healing, but instead it will take 10,000 as damage. So yeah, this one will be pretty good against a lot of the self-sustain setups, especially a unit such as Ileana, which is currently the super meta tank. She does have the ability to pretty much heal back to full, and this will be an insane counter. You'll see it later on in the video. Now for her active skill, this one is pretty simple, right? It teleports behind a target with the highest attack, and it gives 800% multiplier damage to him. Much like the Awaken form ultimate, this one also ignores 100% of the defense. Now for active skill 2, this one I don't know, I'm not a massive fan of. It looked better on paper, right? But what it does is essentially you gain a buff, right? For 6 seconds you get a protection of science effect. Basically, everyone around you receives 50% scaling burn damage per second, right? So for 6 seconds they will be burning, and to yourself you will receive damage resistance by 95%. So this one, when you have this damage resistance, you pretty much don't take any damage. The problem is the damage resistance lasts for 6 seconds and the cooldown of the skill is 12 seconds. So for 6 seconds you are unkillable. However, for the next 6 seconds, you are essentially just a paper bag standing in the backline, and what happens in most of the cases is the whole team will start to focus you eventually, and you will explode, right? So you really have to time this skill to not die. I don't know, you have to somehow cooperate with the rest of the team, maybe Reiho shields or anything like that while her regular active skill is on uptime or downtime, I mean. But yeah, this one was a bit... I'm not a big fan of this skill after playing around with it. Now her passive, extremely simple, right? As long as there is an enemy around you that has the burn effect, you will gain 150% attack increase. So if I'm calculating this correctly, this potentially pretty much multiplies your attack by 2.5 times. But then again, I'm not entirely sure how multipliers work in this game, whether they're like multiplicative, additive, all of that, right? But as long as there is an enemy in range that has the burn effect, which you can cause yourself, or you can use units like Erika, for example, to cause, you will receive a big attack boost. And now for her exclusive skill that you get once you have her plug-in effect. So at the start of the battle, you'll get Mark of Flame to the enemy with the highest attack power, and once you have this mark on them, their EP is reduced by 200. They will be taking 5% damage from your burn effect per second, and their defense will be reduced by 80%. Now, I'm not sure how much the defense reduction will play into effect, because usually she will teleport behind the highest attack unit, and both her ultimate and the active skill 1 will ignore 100% defense. So I don't see how much it helps when it comes to awaken skills. It does help out quite a bit when you're using the Blossom ability, because the Blossom does not have any defense ignoring built into it, right? But yeah, that's about it. Also, at the start of the battle, you will get 100% scaling shield proportional to your HP for 20 seconds. So essentially, at the start of the battle, you have 2 health bars, which is definitely fair and balanced in my opinion. But yeah, that's about it for the skills. We're gonna go into the battles and we'll see how she performs. Okay, so we're mostly gonna be testing it in content such as the data tower. I'm gonna test it out in PvP against very meta teams currently. And lastly, we'll be testing it out in some boss fights just to see how they work, right? So for this one, this is the team I'll be running, right? Everyone is 200 sync. Eurysia is 210, Thief is 220. The main one we're sort of competing against is the Thief. However, do keep in mind that she does have much higher rank and she also has 20 extra levels. So it will be quite normal for Karen's damage to be a little bit lower. We're gonna test out the Awaken skill first. We're gonna test out the Blossom skill later on. But yeah, I'm gonna jump into the battle. Do keep in mind that in this fight, for example, one of the backline units is of red element, which unfortunately counters the green one. But even then, you'll see that the damage she does with her ultimate as well as her first skill is pretty impressive, right? So yeah, whenever she uses the active skill 1, she will teleport behind the target. As you can see, the target also has that weakening effect. And yeah, we're gonna wait for her nuke. By the way, this is all pre-recorded, so yeah, I don't think I even clicked manually anything. But yeah, she uses the nuke. As you can see, the range is super small. She did a critical hit. She did quite a bit of damage. I think that was 2 hits for 500k critical. So yeah, that's 1,000,000 damage. She is competing with Thief in terms of damage, even though her damage is essentially single target, whereas Thief is an AoE one, right? Of course, Thief will break through a little bit later on. But yeah, as you can see, she did another ultimate on a water unit. She did 600k. But then, what I don't like about her is she randomly jumps to a different target, right? And usually this target will be a fighter of some type, and what happens is she will just die. She will jump in the middle of the fire and usually just get one shot. But yeah, there we go, another hit on I believe that was Elena, right? 800k non-critical hits, so the critical would be multiple millions, right? So yeah, overall her damage, right, I cannot complain about her damage, especially since she is only UR rank, only level 200. She is much worse gear than Thief, and still you can see that Thief did 6 million, she did 4.5 million, so her damage is by no means weak, but you'll see that she'll have some troubles later on, right? Okay, and we're gonna test another stage. This one, again, there is quite a few red type units, which unfortunately means that she will have trouble doing damage to those. And if I remember correctly, she will jump to the red target. If she jumps to the blue one, it's all good. But yeah, we're waiting for the skill use. Yeah, she jumps to the red target, and you'll see, essentially, she'll launch an ultimate, right? I believe this is what happens. Let me quickly see. So Thief uses a skill, she uses a skill, she does respectable damage on a dead type unit, right? She did half of her HP bar, but look at her. She teleports to the mid, or rather she teleports behind the archer. One shot from this archer right here, she got instantly wiped because she no longer has that protection from her skill 2, right? And just look at this. The archer, I believe the archer it was, right? I don't even... Who even killed her, honestly? Like, it's so hard to tell, but she got blasted. Absolutely one shot. Let me just try to see who killed her. I can't even see who killed her, but she got absolutely deleted, right? So that's the problem I have with her active skill 2 is half of the duration she will be amazing, right? Obviously I lost the match. Half of the duration she will be amazing. The other half, one shot and she's dead. And once she's dead, especially if she's like one of the 2 damage dealers in your team, you're most likely not gonna be able to finish the fight as you won't have enough damage, especially if there's like a healer or a tank on the enemy team, right? So yeah, I went into another fight just to see what happened, right? Exactly the same team, both on my and the enemy, still using the Awaken skill. And yeah, essentially, pretty much the same thing is gonna happen. She jumps to the backline. She does pretty good damage, right? And I think you need something like a Thief to first of all do the chip damage, and only after that you would want her to activate her skill. But yeah, you can see 650k, then she uses the active skill again, she jumps to a different target, and pretty much the same thing will happen if I remember correctly, right? She's there, she took a single hit, she got 90% of her HP reduced, and again, like completely wiped. I know that might have been like a red unit, which is element advantage, but she is a fighter, and unlike something like Thief or Rachel, she doesn't have that passive ability to avoid stuff, right? Because the Thief, she will dash out of the fight after some time, right? The Assassin, the Rachel, she also has the ability to become invincible when she is low HP. For this one, she doesn't have it, so this is, I feel like, where she will suffer the most, and it's that small window when she is vulnerable. She is very, very prone to getting one shot. Now for the next fight, I'm gonna go into the same fight, however, I'm gonna be testing her with a Blossom ultimate, and you'll notice that for this one, the range is gonna be much bigger, and I feel like Blossom will be the meta one when it comes to fighting multiple enemies, right? Like basically story mode, data tower, PvP, all of that, right? It just is able to hit more enemies, and especially if she jumps somewhere in the middle, she'll be able to target much more. So you can see for this one, she only targeted the backline unit, but if she jumps towards the middle with using her active skill on later on, she will be able to do a bit more. Again, as you can see, she got exploded, absolutely exploded, one shot, one tapped. And there's not much you can do because she does jump into the backline and she does become the target, right? So yeah, that's the biggest drawback I found with her so far. Now next up, we're gonna test her out in a boss fight, right? And after this, we'll be jumping into PvP fights against these more meta teams. So for this one, what I did is essentially I used the same team and I only replaced Rachel with her. So we're gonna compete in damage against the Thief, right? For both Thief and Karen currently running Awaken type skills, because those will work the best on bosses, right? Both of their Blossom skills aren't that great against bosses. And yeah, when it comes to damage, right, you'll be surprised to see that she is able to compete against the Thief. And keep in mind, Thief is 20 levels higher. Karen is only UR rank, whereas the Thief is, I believe, LR2 or LR3. Thief does have a little bit better gear, as well as, I think, a tiny bit better badges. And even then, look at the damage charts. She is able to keep up. She will be able to keep up, just a spoiler alert, she will be able to keep up for pretty much the majority of the fight until she dies a little bit later on. The cool thing about her is both her and the Thief, right? And this is what I love about Thief, Rachel, and Karen now as well, is they teleport behind enemies. And in scenarios like this, where the boss usually locks onto the frontline unit, they will not be getting hit by those AoE attacks, and they are able to just dash out a lot of damage because of that, right? They are not getting targeted, so just you can build them full DPS and they will be able to blast through while the boss is hitting your tank. In my case, Eliana, right? After a bit it switches, but even then you will see that they will just teleport behind him and there's not much they can do, really, right? Like, Thief gets out of the way. I believe Karen is already out of the way as well, so they just keep flying around. And yeah, the damage wise, you can see she is competing with Thief. I believe she dies quite soon, which will make her lose against the Thief in the end, but until this point she was equal in damage, and if she was equal in level and rank, she would be out competing the Thief, right? Now next up, I'm gonna do the same test, except I'm gonna replace Thief with Rachel, because oh, there we go, alarm. Recently I found out that Rachel's damage against bosses is actually usually the strongest, even stronger against when you're comparing with Thief, right? So for this one, Karen is doing very good damage, you'll notice that. But Rachel is just gonna be another level, right? I'm using Blossom skills on Rachel. I found that both Blossom and Awaken work pretty well, but with Blossoms you just get more stealth, right? So this helps her avoid a little bit more damage from the boss. I believe this one will not last as long as the Thief. They will die throughout the fight, but even then, as you can see, again, Rachel is also, she is LR2, she is level 220 compared to 200 on Karen. And Karen is keeping up, not as much as with Thief, but she is definitely still keeping up. Unfortunately, she died early, so if we pause at this moment, you can see that 5 million against 7.5 million, still a pretty decent competition, right? Okay, and lastly, we're gonna jump into the PvP mode where we fight against the top 10 people on the server last week, right? So we are pretty much guaranteed to fight against very meta teams, and starting off with the person who finished at rank 10. I believe his team was a little bit unconventional, if I remember correctly. So yeah, his team is, again, you will see a lot of similar teams, so this is probably like the best way to test it. Eliana Thief, she, I don't know. There is a Patricia there, which was a very surprising thing. We got Shale, whatever she's called, and we have a Hidna, right? So for this one, I believe I'm gonna switch out Frederica. Yeah, I switch out Frederica for Karen, and we're gonna run a triple DPS setup, if I remember correctly. And yeah, we're just gonna check out how it works out in PvP. I'm gonna be running the Awaken skill, right? And yeah, we're gonna let the fight go. Spoiler alert, again, you'll see that Karen is able to do good DPS, however, she's definitely not gonna be the one that shines the most. So both her and Rachel jump to the highest attack target, which means both of them start targeting a Hidna in the back. However, Rachel is able to charge her ultimate a bit faster, so what happens at the end is, instead of Karen getting a skill off, Rachel gets 3 of her ultimates off, and by the time she has killed everyone pretty much, she doesn't have too much to kill. Unfortunately, Karen's skill targeted Eliana, so she took absolutely 0 damage, which could have been pretty good if she used the anti-heal skill, right? But in this case, the regular damage one will not do too much. I believe she is able to one-shot her somewhere. Yeah, basically did like half of her HP bar, which against Ileana's is pretty good because Ileana's are very tanky in the current meta, and I believe Rachel finishes it off. So when it comes to this fight, Rachel, complete domination, right? She was able to charge her ultimate a bit faster, and you'll see that not only Karen, but even the Thief didn't do any damage pretty much at all. Next up we have this one, and we are fighting against a quad red team, which means that well, we will be struggling a bit, right? Because Karen is of green element, however Thief should theoretically completely wipe this team. I don't want to exclude both Rachel and Thief from these teams because I feel like especially something like Karen and Thief will be a very good combo rather than using them separately, right? So Thief unleashes her nuke, Rachel unleashes her nuke, and Karen is about to unleash her Blossom ultimate, which will be a counter to a lot of healers. So as you can see, it did like 60% of Marialight's HP, it did some damage to the units up top there, and she was able, if I saw it correctly, she was able to outdamage Rachel in this fight. So yeah, this is why I prefer the Blossom skill a little bit more, right? Not only because like, yes, Blossom skill technically does less damage, it doesn't have all of the defense ignoring stuff, but at least you are able to hit targets, because with the Awaken skill, you are pretty much hitting one target, right? Whereas with the Blossom skill, there is a good chance that you hit 2, 3 or more targets, which just mean that you will be able to do higher damage in general, and when it comes to PvP, you will also be able to block their healing, which will be very impactful against units like this. So as you can see in this one, there's quite a few healers, right? There is the Comet, there is the Madelight, there's Ileana in here, and all of these... wait, does Comet heal? I don't quite recall. I believe Comet heals a bit. But yeah, it is just able to counter a lot of these like meta healer comps, especially units like Madelight and Ileana are very, very common currently in the Korean meta, and yeah, it's a trouble dealing with those. But if you have something like an anti-heal that actually does damage, it's gonna be perfect, right? So yeah, both of them. I don't actually have Rachel in this fight, so yeah. See, this is what I don't exactly like. Okay, I'm gonna let her use the skill, right? She actually hits all 5 targets in here, and if we look at the DPS she did, so she hit I believe that was Claudia for around 60%, she hit Echidna for like 30%, this one for like 30 to 35%, and she also has those debuffs which prevent healing. So I'm not sure whether they will heal exactly, but as you can see that her plus Thief, right, is a very, very deadly combo, which can wipe out pretty much the majority of the fight. Again, another ultimate, she did massive damage. Unfortunately, she died to a single hit from Echidna, but also she was able to pretty much one-shot her as well. And yeah, Thief is gonna finish this off, and overall pretty good sort of this like self-destruct nuke, right? And yeah, for damage charts, 1.6 million compared to Thief's 2.8, pretty good. Okay, and this is more of a team that she is able to counter because the elements are a bit more advantageous for Karen, right? So we have Ileana at the front, Thief, Rachel, Frederica middle, very standard picks, right? And we have Comet as support. So unfortunately, I believe Comet will not have the highest attack, so she will target one of the 3 units in the middle, right? But we're gonna see if she's able to do good damage, right? And we're gonna see how well she performs, especially since Thief is sort of a unit that doesn't work too well into this team due to a lot of element disadvantages, right? For element bonuses, we have the same thing pretty much. And yeah, she targets... who is she targeting? I believe she's targeting Frederica, right? And she's gonna unleash a big nuke. Maybe she's gonna hit 2 units rather than 1, right? But we'll see the damage. I'm gonna start off with Thief, but unfortunately I don't think she will be able to get this kill off. Oh, she did, okay. So the Thief, I believe, killed one of the units. She targets... oh, never mind. She targeted the Ileana, which unfortunately did 0 damage because Ileana just, well, she doesn't take damage. Although I do recall that I won this fight, so I am actually wondering how I did it. For this one, look at that. She hit. Who did she hit right there? Because she did one-shot it with a critical hit, right? Who was there in the front? Let me quickly try to see. Oh, it's so hard to see, actually. I don't even know who she one-shot. Is that... I believe that is a Bikini Rachel, right? But yeah, it one-shot. Maybe I've even one-shotted 2 targets, not even 1. So yeah, she does have the damage potential. Her Awakened skill has absolutely massive damage potential. It's just that she needs to be really protected while doing those skills. Again, she one-shot half of Ileana's HP, which is very impressive. She just needs to be protected when using that skill, because otherwise she's gonna be struggling a lot to survive. So yeah, damage unfortunately not comparable to Thief, but then again she's pretty much like a single target damage dealer, whereas Thief is an AoE one. Okay, and now here's one more thing that I tried. So essentially, since she benefits from basically she gets an attack buff from having a burn on an enemy next to her, I thought maybe I could include a unit that does burn apart from her. So I added Edeka to the team, right? I will launch an ultimate with Edeka, which is followed closely by Karen's ult, and as you can see, it did do 620k damage to the enemy. But even then, the second she gets her active skill 2 window down, she just gets one shot, right? And personally, you can try to play around with a combo like this. I was not a big fan of it, right? But I believe that the global population, they're probably much better at building combos than I am, and will be able to come up with something that works much better, right? But yeah, that's just my thoughts on her so far. But yeah, overall, closing thoughts on Karen, right? Her Awakened skill, amazing DPS. I think she's amazing in boss fights, right? Very high multiplier. You saw she's pretty much out competing Thief if their levels and upgrade tier was similar, right? She's definitely out competing it, and I'm definitely gonna continue using her in those boss fights. Blossom skill is pretty good against these hordes of enemies, especially in stuff like PvP, where there's usually like 2 or 3 healers relevant. And yeah, overall, after that, the biggest downside I have with her is, first of all, she goes behind the backline, and after that she will just randomly walk in the middle, drawing attention and getting target on her back, right? And once she gets the target on their back, as soon as active skill 2 wears out, one shot, she's dead, right? So yeah, very good damage, pretty good utility, absolutely no sustain. I'ma just call it like that, right? That 50% downtime window is just too brutal, right? She will just explode like paper. She doesn't have any other safety fallback options, right, apart from that, and even the 100% shield that she gets at the beginning of the fight is just not enough to protect her, right? So yeah, that's my thoughts on Karen. Let me know what you think, whether you find her as a good unit, not just from fan service perspective, right? And yeah, let me know if you would be summoning her if she came out on global right now, right? But yeah, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed, and peace.